Any news we can find that isn't about the South African ketamine addict who has been taking an axe to the U.S. government on a daily basis for the better part of a month.
Ugh.
Mainly because our thumbnails could really use a break from having to feature his pale rictus of a face. We have prayed, and God has answered with some truly biblical news that's very relevant to our interests and yours. Whales are back in the news this week.
Oh, good.
In a big way, with a reminder that they might not be sharks, but they're still terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, the bulk of this episode is still sadly devoted to the endless, constant, dumb bullshit from our new president's administration. But let's start with a story straight out of the Old Testament. The fun one. About a guy getting swallowed by a damn whale.
Where's my lighter? I need to light a candle. That's the only way out.
Oh, jeez. I'm inside a whale's stomach.
And they even got it on video, which, just to be safe, we're showing frame by frame here, but you can find it very easily just by searching kayaker swallowed by whale or looking at the links down in the description, as always. It's the kind of thing the victim is probably glad was caught on video, because otherwise it would be very difficult to believe.
Okay, buddy.
Yeah, a lot of guys been eaten by whales. All right, he's just trying to get a free drink. He's fine, by the way. We probably should have said that first instead of making fun of him.
He did not die. He was not swallowed and then subsequently pooped out by a whale.
But here's the BBC with the full story. The first thing kayaker Adrian Simancos noticed after he was eaten by a whale was the slime. I spent a second realizing I was inside the mouth of something, that maybe it had eaten me, that it could have been an orca or a sea monster, the 23-year-old told BBC Mundo. Adrian had started to think how he might survive inside the humpback whale like Pinocchio. Then the creature spat him back out. I guess I'm not good enough for you.
I was already making plans for my new life, living inside the whale.
Yeah, but I guess I taste disgusting. Sure. The Venezuelan kayaker had been paddling through the Strait of Magellan off Chile's Patagonian coast with his father when he felt something hit me from behind, closing in on me and sinking me. His father, Dahl, was able to capture the short-lived ordeal on video just meters away, which is also very funny. Like, because you can't do anything.
Yeah.
It's horrific, because you're just like, well, I guess the only thing I can do is film.
Well, the funny part is the camera was mounted to his kayak.
Oh, he couldn't.
He was facing the other way.
So he had to paddle really quickly to turn it to...
He didn't even see it happen.
Wow.
But the camera did.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, it's probably better that he didn't see it, actually.
Yeah. He's got the footage, and that's priceless. I closed my eyes, and when I opened them again, I realized I was inside the whale's mouth, Adrian told the BBC. I felt a slimy texture brush my face, he recalled, adding that all he could see was dark blue and white. I wondered what I could do if it had swallowed me, since I could no longer fight to stop it, he said. I had to think about what to do next. But within seconds, Adrian started to feel as though he was rising toward the surface. I was a little afraid of whether I would be able to hold my breath because I didn't know how deep I was, and I felt like it took me a long time to come up. I went up for 2 seconds, and finally I got to the surface and realized that it hadn't eaten me. For Adrian, the experience was not just about survival, but he felt he had received a second chance when the whale spat him out. The unique experience in one of the most extreme places on Earth had invited me to reflect on what I could have done better up until that point, and on the ways I can take advantage of the experience and appreciate it as well, he added. But there's a simple reason he was able to escape the whale so quickly, according to a wildlife expert. Humpback whales have narrow throats, about the size of a household pipe, designed for swallowing small fish and shrimp, Brazilian conservationist Rochelle Jacobson Seba told the BBC. They physically cannot swallow large objects like kayaks, tires, or even big fish like tuna, he said. Ultimately, the whale spit out the kayak because it was physically impossible to swallow.
Which is good to know.
Big mouth.
Tiny hole.
Tiny throat.
Yeah. Good to know. And honestly, a brush with death could do everyone a lot of good. I think that if you put yourself in a situation where you could get eaten by a humpback whale, knowing that it is impossible, maybe that would be enough to scare you straight.
Yeah.
So,
it's
also quite a story. I was spit out by a giant whale.
I mean, that happens to you, and you can divide your life up in 2 sections.
Yeah, before and after the whale.
Before and after that whale swallowed me in its mouth.
And
then spit me out.
To be fair, way better outcome than the whale jumping and landing on you.
Yeah, that's a lot scarier.
Yeah. You're in the whale's mouth. You don't want to be there. He doesn't want you in there. It's all going to be over soon. Just wait it out. Yeah. Well, yeah. So it is good to know if you ever...
I realized that I can't actually use my headphones like this. Because it still takes 40 seconds for it to go from here on the OBS to the encoder on the restream, so I still have a 40-second delay. I would need to figure out a way to get my laptop to monitor the OBS itself. Or get enough money where I can fucking get a Bluetooth receiver for the headphones and plug it into my computer.
End up fully enclosed in the
Turn on my
mouth of
speaker
a whale
again,
the
of
size of a
course.
school bus. There's no need to worry, silly. What are you freaking out for? Calm down. He couldn't swallow you even if he wanted to. As for why it would try to, well, it obviously didn't. He's just there. That's my water. What are you doing to my water? Much like that time a little while back when a gigantic whale breached and landed on a fishing boat, it was a big oopsie on the whale's part. The whale was hoping for a mouthful of fish or plankton or whatever, and this poor bastard just happened to be in the way. It's horribly bad luck, but such bad luck that it's almost good luck. Getting struck by lightning is rare, but getting swallowed by a whale is an even more exclusive club. And less painful, at least for this guy. Just really slimy and gross.
Yeah, that tongue, that big tongue of theirs.
He's gonna be like, oh, it was so good for my skin. I'm never gonna get that beautiful sheen like I had after I got out of that whale's mouth.
Swallow me again. I need it.
Yeah.
I'm ashy.
Yeah. But speaking of slimy, it's time to check in on a character that we haven't heard from much lately. Donald Trump Jr., who for this go-around has mostly been on the sidelines as he works in the private sector. He's apparently so out of the loop on things this time around that he shared a meme this week featuring Mark Zuckerberg's face among a collage of enemies of MAGA like George Soros and Anthony Fauci, despite Zuckerberg's various pathetic overtures to Trump in the past few months.
He missed the memo.
Yeah, he was there. He was there on Inauguration Day.
People in the comments were like, wait, I thought Mark was on our side now.
You might not have recognized him because of his new drip.
Yeah, that's old Mark. Old Mark, dork Mark,
That's before the whale.
but Dominican Mark he's MAGA.
He's on island time. So
But in his defense, Don Jr. has been very busy in his new career advising a gambling company that lets you bet on basically anything, including U.S. politics, which, I don't know, seems like a massive conflict of interest, but those don't matter anymore.
even back in
Whatever.
the beginning of January, that company did finally revert the you can bet on the LA fires thing because, yeah, when you open up betting to literally everything, corruption and intentional terrorism can happen.
It's just real degenerate shit.
Yeah,
this is not, I mean, maybe this is what some people are starting on now, but it feels like the kind of thing that you only move to once you've been, like, banned from a couple casinos and a couple, you've been, like, rate limited on the poker apps and sports betting apps. Like, fuck it, I'll bet on anything. Just give me something to
Oh my
bet
god.
on. I have a disease.
Well, now you can bet on
Can't
politics, which the son of the president is in charge of the company that is going to allow you to do that. Which
I'm sure Don Jr. is
Our
recusing
headphones
himself
that
from any
only have a
bets,
cord
just like
going to one
involving
ear
things that
is
his father
tangled.
will
Obviously.
do. So this story
Somebody
isn't
chewed
about
it in half.
politics,
Holy
though. It's
yeah.
a throwback to an ongoing subplot that we haven't heard much about in a while, but it's still happening. The Enhanced Games, aka the Steroid Olympics.
in fact, I would assume it's even more happening now.
Oh, it's fucking on.
Yeah.
Letting athletes take as many performance enhancers as they want and just seeing what happens is a classic dumb guy idea that you hear at 3 a.m. on your couch after you get home from the bars. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't that be crazy? And we're living in a dumb guy renaissance, with Don Jr. among the dumb guy elite. So this story is no big surprise, really. Here's Newsweek. President Donald Trump's eldest son, Donald Trump Jr., is the latest to invest in the Enhanced Games, which critics call the Steroid Olympics. The Enhanced Games would allow natural athletes and athletes who use legal performance-enhancing drugs
Okay,
to
I don't
compete
care about
against each
this.
other in the hope of breaking
want-
world records.
The Enhanced Games announced on Thursday that they have received a multi-million-dollar investment co-led by 1789 Capital, founded by Omid Malik and Christopher Buskirk, and where Trump Jr. serves as a partner. The Enhanced Games called the investment a monumental
Where is is it the episode they did before where it's talking about fucking the banned words. That's what I really want to look at.
And athletes who use legal performance-enhancing drugs to compete against each other in the hope of breaking world records.
The Enhanced Games announced on Thursday that they have received a multi-million-dollar investment co-led by 1789 Capital, founded by Omid Malik and Christopher Buskirk, and where Trump Jr. serves as a partner. The Enhanced Games called the investment a monumental step forward in a press release. The investment is important, of course, but what is more important is the validation of Donald Trump Jr., who's obviously a leading member of the Trump MAGA Make America Great Again movement, and how that validates what we're doing. Dr. Aaron D'Souza, founder and president of the Enhanced Games, told Newsweek via video chat on Thursday, "The Enhanced Games are disruptive. They're thought-provoking. It's challenging norms, which is very much aligned with everything the president and this new American golden age is about." Trump Jr. said in the Enhanced Games press release, "The Enhanced Games represent the future, real competition, real freedom, and real records being smashed.
I'm gonna assume
This is about excellence, innovation, and American dominance on the world stage. Something the MAGA movement is all about. Odd that we'd have to be performance enhanced to dominate. We're the best at doing drugs to blow our muscles up to comical proportions. The Enhanced Games are going to be huge, and I couldn't be prouder to support this movement that is changing sports forever." And all the betting that's going to happen, that's just a very convenient, nice to have side plot to all of this.
The gambling.
Yes.
The beautiful gambling.
Ah, yes, the gambling.
I wonder if they're gonna have like hunting as a category, because that's his favorite hobby. And
As long as the athletes come out and stay completely still.
yeah, I mean, like, you know, like how could they make hunting an enhanced game? Well, you got to stay awake. You got to stay up in that perch, not pooping or pissing, just doing rails of cocaine.
I went the other way. I thought Don Jr. was going to hunt the athletes.
Oh,
That would make it more interesting, and you
That-
have to be enhanced.
yeah, and he'd
Yeah.
be enhanced. He is enhanced.
He's constantly enhanced. That's why he's so amped on this.
Very enhanced.
Yeah. He's out there breaking his own records.
So the first enhanced game is supposedly happening by the end of this year, but we will see. They want to make it an annual event, but it seems like the novelty of this sort of thing would wear off pretty quickly. There's also the fact that any athlete participating in it risks not only their reputation, but also their ability to compete in any non-enhanced competitions ever again. So it's not like the actual best athletes are going to be competing, just the most roided out ones. The ones with nothing to lose.
Yeah, it's not great. People are going to get very hurt. It's essentially very close to the XFL, where it's like you're not in the, you did all the work, but you didn't make it into the NFL, or maybe you were in there for a season or so. But we have a new exciting league just for you. And by the way, less rules. You just go nuts.
Less rules, but like there's still rules. And these
Yeah, and that's the thing is you can't compete elsewhere ever again.
no.
But do you think that there will be I don't want to say jealousy is the word, but like when you see these enhanced quote unquote athletes start putting up numbers and they're like, "Yeah, I got the world record. Pretty cool, huh?" And like nobody acknowledges that in the real sports world. But seeing like some record that is only beaten because the guy's clearly on drugs and you're a traditional athlete who's trained his entire life, maybe it'll make him more motivated to actually.
Maybe a few, but I think most of them are just going to be like, okay, well, that's not a real record. So
Yeah, true.
who cares?
Yeah.
But moving on now to the politics part of the episode, starting with some updates to one of the most transparently corrupt subplots of the past week or so. Trump's DOJ dropping the rock-solid corruption case against New York Mayor Eric Adams in exchange for Adams just doing Trump's bidding.
Yeah.
Now, last we checked, the situation was shaping up to be a present-day version of the Nixon-era Saturday Night Massacre, when a bunch of DOJ officials were fired or resigned for refusing to put a stop to the Watergate investigation. In this case, a string of DOJ officials have decided to just quit and preserve their professional dignity rather than be complicit in this blatant corruption and be tainted by it for the rest of their careers and lives.
First, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York resigned rather than obeying the order. Then it was passed on to the DOJ's Public Integrity Unit, and 5 more DOJ lawyers resigned. Then on Friday, there was yet another resignation. Here's the New York Times. Hagen Scotton, the lead prosecutor on the federal corruption case against Mayor Eric Adams of New York City, resigned after Justice Department officials ordered the dismissal of charges he had helped bring, suggesting that only a fool or a coward would obey. In an undated, scathing resignation letter, Mr. Scotton wrote that any federal prosecutor would know that our laws and traditions do not allow using the prosecutorial power to influence other citizens, much less elected officials. He added, "If no lawyer within earshot of the president is willing to give him that advice, then I expect you will eventually find someone who is enough of a fool or enough of a coward to file your motion. But it was never going to be me." Couldn't be me.
Damn.
Mr. Scotton was responding to a Justice Department official's directive this week to dismiss the bribery, fraud, and other charges against Mr. Adams so the mayor could help with President Trump's immigration crackdown.
Quite
They just keep putting it in everything.
Yeah, that's why they're doing it, by the way.
He had a meeting with ICE this morning, by the way, on his way out.
Yeah, it's like they're not even pretending it's about anything else. Like, there's no like pretext or pretense. Like, no, it's just like we need him to do some shit for us, and this is a way to ensure that he does it.
Even more obviously, they had Eric Adams with another member of I can't remember who it was, but another member of the Trump administration on the morning, like the Fox and Friends and stuff like that.
Was it Tom Homan?
Yes.
Yeah,
the immigration guy.
That baked ham.
Yes. So that guy was bringing the New York City mayor, Eric Adams, on the cable news shows to be like, yeah, he's on our side now. Hey, tell him what we told you to say, Eric.
They fucking own him, and it would be.
Yeah, I
feel
remember
like
a few months ago when I was like
fine, just
wrong and yelling, saying,
that person
"There's a
would have
Republican
shame
mayor in New
and
York
principles,
right
and
now."
Eric Adams has none of those things.
No.
And then I was like, "Oh,
And
wait."
continues. The official, Emil Bove III, who is the acting deputy attorney
He's
general,
actually a
gave the order
Democrat.
to Danielle R. Sassoon, the acting U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York. She resigned on Thursday rather than carry out the order to seek dismissal of the charges against Mr. Adams. Ms. Sassoon, 38, a veteran Southern District prosecutor, was elevated last month by the Trump administration to lead the office. At the time, she and Mr. Scotton were co-chiefs of the office's Criminal Appeals Unit. Mr. Scotton served 3 combat tours in Iraq as a U.S. Army Special Forces officer and earned 2 Bronze Stars. He graduated from Harvard Law School and clerked for Chief Justice John G. Roberts, Jr. of the U.S. Supreme Court and for Brett M. Kavanaugh before he, too, became a Supreme Court justice. Mr. Scotton had led the investigation into Mr. Adams since it began in the summer of 2021. It resulted in an indictment that was announced in September by a previous U.S. attorney, Damian Williams, an appointee of President Joseph R. Biden, Jr. In a hearing in October, Mr. Scotton said in court that additional charges could be brought and additional defendants charged. So they had a case.
Well,
they
yeah.
had a pretty strong case, and it was about to get even stronger.
You know what's better than a good case, though? A lot of leverage on a powerful politician.
A mayor that will, of the biggest city in the country, that will do whatever you fucking tell him to.
Yeah, and he has to, or else his freedom is taken away from him.
Yeah, because they can bring the case back.
He will go to.
Anytime they want.
If this was able to proceed, he probably would go behind bars.
Yeah, it's a bad deal, and like, especially with
It's
Trump.
a bad deal for him too, because
don't
once he's
trust
not
him.
in power, like.
Yeah.
Well, let's make that happen sooner rather than later, people of New York. Let's vote him out.
Yeah, the primary's in June, I think. Get rid of him.
But during the Watergate scandal, eventually Nixon was able to find someone willing to sign off on all of his blatant corruption. That was Robert Bork. And since then, Bork has been a verb. And it was only a matter of time until someone borked this case. Here's Reuters. Federal prosecutors on Friday formally asked a U.S. judge to drop bribery charges against New York Mayor Eric Adams after an order by an official in President Donald Trump's Justice Department for them to do so prompted mass resignations. U.S. District Judge Dale Ho still must sign off on the request to dismiss the 5-count criminal indictment brought last September charging Adams, a Democrat, with accepting travel perks from Turkish officials and political donations from foreigners in exchange for taking actions to benefit Turkey. Adams had pleaded not guilty. Federal prosecutors in Washington stepped in to make the filing on behalf of their New York counterparts on Friday. They said continuing the case would, quote, interfere with the defendant's ability to govern in New York City, which poses unacceptable threats to public safety, national security, and related federal immigration initiatives and policies. The filing was signed by Antoinette Bacon, a supervisory official in the Justice Department's Criminal Division, and Edward Sullivan, senior litigation counsel in the Public Integrity section.
Public
integrity. Acting Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove separately signed the filing saying he authorized the request. Don't worry, public integrity is all over this.
The integrity squad is on it.
Yeah.
Making sure that integrity is being upheld.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Bove, by the way, might be the most haggard
Where would
looking
we be
millennial
without
on
integrity?
Earth. Like, you look at this man's face and you're like, that guy's 60 years old. But he is a millennial. He was born in like 1982.
Yeah.
It ages you.
We are.
This shit.
We're getting old. Well, not we. Everyone else. All the mean people.
He's getting old. I'm staying the same age.
Yeah.
He's also clearly got no principles whatsoever, just from this story alone, and that extends beyond just the Eric Adams case. Here's NPR. After a mob of Donald Trump supporters violently stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, Emil Bove led efforts by federal prosecutors in Manhattan to help the FBI aggressively investigate, identify, and arrest rioters from the New York region. 4 years later, Bove is now the acting number 2 official in President Trump's Justice Department. He has used that perch to denounce the Capitol riot investigation and spearhead a purge of prosecutors and potentially of FBI agents who worked on January 6 cases. The disconnect between Bove's aggressive stance to hold rioters accountable for the January 6th assault and his current hostility around the investigation has troubled some former colleagues. At no point did I ever hear him or anybody else express concern about these investigations and these arrests that they were making, said Christopher O'Leary, who was a top counterterrorism official in the FBI's New York field office at the time. We never heard any pushback from him or anybody in his
I
office.
swear to God.
When the January 6th attack happened, Bove was the
fucking
co-chief
banned
of the
words.
Terrorism and International Narcotics Unit at the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York. In that role, he helped supervise all of the office's work related to the Capitol attack, directing prosecutors to support the FBI in the investigation and overseeing efforts to obtain things like search warrants, according to O'Leary and a former prosecutor who worked with Bove. Like O'Leary, the former prosecutor said Bove never voiced any reservations about the riot investigation. To the contrary, the former prosecutor said Bove gave strong, direct encouragement to the line prosecutors to aggressively pursue the investigation, legal process, support FBI, etc. So yeah, the guy currently purging the federal government of anyone who just did their fucking jobs investigating January 6th was himself involved in investigating and prosecuting January 6th rioters. So there you go.
Well, it's different because now I'm in.
He has shined the
It's
shoes. He has
different.
kissed the ring.
Me good, you bad.
Yes. No, my ideology is different. You don't understand.
I've evolved.
Much like
I've-
J.D. Vance.
I've seen the light.
Yes. I've taken the Vance. But moving on now to another dumb subplot from the past couple of weeks. The Gulf of Mexico being officially renamed the Gulf of America. On its surface, it's pretty trivial compared to everything else, but it's still a tactic to make people fall in line. And the Associated Press found that out the hard way this week when they were banned from the White House for continuing to call it the Gulf of Mexico in their reporting, which is accurate. Here's the AP with some very meta journalism.
Yeah. The White House said Wednesday that news organizations that refused to use President Donald Trump's new name for the Gulf of Mexico were telling lies.
Telling lies.
No, papa. And insisted it would continue to bar Associated Press journalists from presidential events. Trump has decreed that the international body of water, which borders Mexico, the United States, and other nations, be called the Gulf of America. In its influential style book, the AP said it would continue to use Gulf of Mexico, while also noting Trump's decision to ensure that names of geographical features are recognizable around the world. The White House's outright attempt at regulating language used by independent media and the punitive measures attached to it mark a sharp escalation in Trump's often fraught dealings with news organizations. At a regular briefing Wednesday, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that it is a fact that the body of water off the coast of Louisiana is called the Gulf of America, and I'm not sure why news outlets don't want to call it that. In reality, the body lies partially in waters that don't belong to the United States and has been called the Gulf of Mexico for hundreds of years.
Yeah. It's very dumb. It's very petty. But it's at least nice to see a press outlet take a stand like this, no matter how trivial it might seem. Also, this is particularly maddening because, like, the Associated Press, of all of the people that could be in the room, is
they're doing
the most standard basic journalism and news reports and spreading it internationally, where internationally everyone still refers to it accurately as the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah, they're a wire service, so like their reporting gets picked up by outlets around the world.
Yeah.
in other countries when they're covering U.S. news. Instead of, if they don't have a reporter of their own in the U.S. covering it, they'll just they'll license the AP's coverage of it.
Yeah.
It's also like a ton of like local newspapers.
They all use it.
They use the AP because they can't actually employ like the fucking workforce to cover everything.
You don't have a guy from like Tempe, Arizona at the White House in the morning. Yeah.
So, this is just dumb.
Yeah. Moving on now to your daily dose of Doge.
Ew.
Elon Musk and his Gooner squad have been very, very busy this week. And on Friday night, we learned that Elon's quest to eviscerate the federal government has not gotten in the way of his other favorite hobby, impregnating women.
He's a breeder.
Here's the Daily Beast. Ashley St. Clair, a 26-year-old right-wing influencer, contributor to conservative satirical news site The Babylon Bee, and semi-regular guest on Fox News, took to X late Friday night to claim that she recently had a child with Elon Musk. She wrote, 5 months ago, I welcomed a new baby into the world. Elon Musk is the father. I have not previously disclosed this to protect our child's privacy and safety. But in recent days, it has become clear that tabloid media intends to do so, regardless of the harm it will cause. St. Clair ended her statement with a request for the media to honor their child's privacy and refrain from invasive reporting. The statement was accompanied by a Latin phrase, alia iacta est, which means the die is cast. It is unclear which media outlet or story prompted St. Clair to publish her statement.
Conservative figures like Jack Posobiec, his wife Tanya Tay, Mike Cernovich, and Candace Owens all sent St. Clair their support via X.
They love a wife. They love a child out of wedlock, don't they, folks? As conservative Christians.
Children should always be off limits, wrote right-wing commentator Owens, who has long been plagued by accusations of anti-Semitism, before adding, "Journalists are parasites."
Okay.
In response to Cernovich's comment that there is no low that they, the media, won't go to, St. Clair responded, "Doxing a baby is pretty bottom of the barrel." Doxing a baby.
Doxing a baby.
Musk, who has yet to confirm St. Clair's news, is already a father of 12 children with 3 women. The Doge director has 6 children with his first wife, Justine, 3 with musician Grimes, and 3 with former Neuralink director of operations, Siobhan Zillis, the youngest of whom was born in June 2024. In addition, internet sleuths have found a tweet from Musk to St. Clair sent in response to a November 2023 tweet in which she said, "Stopping birth control and Adderall was one of the best things I ever did for my mental health. So many Americans on pharmaceutical cocktails and then wondering why they feel out of their minds." Musk's response was a simple, "For sure."
Now, the question on my mind and everyone's mind is...
Did they?
Did they?
I
Because
feel
typically
like
he
no.
doesn't.
Yeah, I think he's the one guy, like, say what you will about Nick Cannon, at least that dude's, like, nutting inside women. Like,
Maybe it's better that he isn't, I guess.
yeah,
that Musk isn't.
it's just weird, like, because we talked about this. There was that story, like, he'll be at, like, a dinner party and be like, "Does anyone need any sperm? I'd love to lend you some sperm."
But there's definitely, and I'm not saying that she did or didn't, but, like, you would think right-wing influencer would maybe find him attractive
Maybe.
to the point where she'd be like, "No, let's do this the old-fashioned way.
There's someone for everyone."
Let's take these Demolition Man VR helmets off
Yeah.
and let's get physical."
It is very funny though, like doxing. You've doxed a baby. Like their definition of doxing is utterly meaningless.
No,
at this point.
if an article was even going to come out, it would have been Elon Musk impregnates right-wing Fox News.
Like it's
whatever.
absolutely newsworthy.
Yeah.
Especially,
He's the president of the country.
Yeah, he's a very important figure, and he also has a pattern of having a fuckload of kids. It's newsworthy, and it's not doxing a baby, because you can't dox a baby, to acknowledge that baby's existence and who its parents are.
When the president's manager, Elon Musk, has a baby, it is news regardless.
And also apparently a lot of right wingers on X are they're torn about this because of the wedlock situation.
Well, good news.
So we're supposed to be happy about a single mother having a baby without the baby daddy being in her life? Okay.
Wow, your first contradictory thought? Well, buckle up, bud.
I'm gonna just stash that thought away.
Anyways, that baby will soon be old enough to join its father's Doge team in taking a wrecking ball to the federal government, though there may not be anything left to destroy by then.
Yeah.
The list of government agencies being gutted continues to grow, and it's pretty obvious at this point that it has very little to do with government efficiency. For example, we discussed this week's Doge assault on the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which was created in the aftermath of the financial crisis to stop banks from ripping off average Americans, and has recovered more money for consumers than it costs to operate. But they're a potential roadblock to X becoming a payments app, so they gotta go. And not only that, it's gotta be like they never existed in the first place, because the precedent alone is bad.
Erased. Deleted.
Here's The Verge. Nearly 400 videos that were posted on the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's YouTube page have been removed, as the Trump administration continues to pare back the agency, including its team of skilled technologists. The CFPB YouTube page, which has 15,000 subscribers and was created in 2011, has had every one of its videos removed as of Friday. An archived version of the page shows that as recently as February 8th, it hosted 386 videos. The archived page shows videos with titles like 5 tips for when you can't pay your bills, how do I dispute an error on my credit report, and how can I improve my credit scores? Facebook and X accounts for the agency have also been taken down, although it's unclear when. The homepage of the CFPB website delivers a 404 error message, though other pages on the site are still active.
Okay, so if you're wondering how taking down a huge library of already produced videos promoting financial literacy makes the government more efficient, it doesn't!
Surprise!
It's just destruction for destruction's sake.
Also, you being dumber about your finances helps all of them.
Yeah, it is actually to their benefit if you don't know how to dispute improper charges.
Much like deleting, getting rid of the finally launched government-free tax filing service.
Yeah, that was too easy for you guys. And also, like, our buddies down at TurboTax and H&R Block, they didn't like that existed.
Intuit just built a new stadium down by the airport. They need a little bit more money, so...
Yeah. It's not the IRS stadium, it's the Intuit
Jeffrey
stadium. Yeah, that's right.
Bezos.
And here's something even more destructive than that, and honestly pretty scary, from CBS News. Half of the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention's Epidemic Intelligence Service officers, a group known as the CDC's disease detectives, were among the cuts made Friday by the Trump administration, multiple health officials tell CBS News. The cuts are among the thousands of probationary workers being let go this week across the federal government as part of efforts to shrink the federal workforce overseen by President Trump and the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, task force headed by billionaire Elon Musk. The CDC's Epidemic Intelligence Service, or EIS, officers are hired in annual classes through a competitive process. As part of the fellowship, they serve for 2 years around the CDC or deployed to health departments across the country, often on the front lines of public health responses. Many go on to rise through the ranks at the agency after being selected for the program. All of the most recent classes of hires to serve in the EIS were told Friday they were among the cuts, officials told CBS News. The country is less safe. These are the deployable assets critical for investigating new threats from anthrax to Zika, said Dr. Ann Schuchat, a former top-ranking CDC official and alumna of the program, in a message.
So that's cool. There's also, like, bird flu right now.
Yeah.
So...
bird flu and, with no one vaccinating their fucking kids, there's always all the old school diseases, they pop up here and there, and, usually the CDC, they're on it. They're on it.
Not anymore.
They don't want that shit to spread, because that's bad. And it's just bad for
also,
business.
Going back to just dismantling the Department of Education as well, a big reason why so many children are actually vaccinated is because they need that to get into public school. So you're not going to really need to vaccinate all those kids if they're all going to their voucher schools that their parents love that don't vaccinate. It's it doesn't bode well for the future. It makes me very upset.
Yeah, this and then like the FDA, all the stuff with
there's so much
safety
destroyed that it's hard to focus on one because everything's going to be fucked.
Yeah.
So that's cool, and it is also great news for mental health. The next time there's a disease epidemic, we won't have to deal with all the worry of even knowing that it's happening. And it won't be a cover-up because even the government won't know about it.
Yeah, just let it kill you.
Yeah, just like those naughty test scores. America's test scores are bad. Let's get rid of the American test score analyzing company.
Yeah, no tests, no problem.
But in other unsettling news, Doge this week also targeted the Department of Energy, which manages the U.S. Our nuclear weapons. Sudden mass layoffs at a department that handles some extremely sensitive work seems reckless and bad. And it's also, once again, an example of how Doge is playing out almost exactly like Elon's takeover of Twitter. Here's NBC News. National Nuclear Security Administration officials on Friday attempted to notify some employees who had been let go the day before that they are now due to be reinstated. But they struggled to find them because they didn't have their new contact information. In an email sent to employees at NNSA and obtained by NBC News, officials wrote, "The termination letters for some NNSA probationary employees are being rescinded, but we do not have a good way to get in touch with those personnel." The individuals the letter refers to had been fired on Thursday and lost access to their federal government email accounts. NNSA, which is within the Department of Energy and oversees the nation's nuclear stockpile, cannot reach these employees directly and is now asking recipients of the email, please work with your supervisors to send this information, once you get it, to people's personal contact emails. The NNSA is tasked with designing, building, and overseeing the U.S. nuclear weapons stockpile. The termination notices, which read, effective today, came within hours of a Russian drone striking the Chernobyl power plant in Ukraine.
Epic.
NNSA tracks nuclear risks in Ukraine, including through sensor systems.
So yeah, they just fired a bunch of people, and then the people actually working there were like, no, please come back, please come back. Same thing happened with Twitter. They fired a bunch of the engineers, and they're like, fuck. Does anyone know how to work this thing? Oh, we fired everyone who does? I gotta make some calls.
This is part of Elon's plan where he's like, oh, we'll just quickly put back everything that broke. And this is how it happens. It doesn't actually do that. Once you dismantle something, it's very hard to put it back.
Yeah, and just like, I don't know, I mean, all of these government agencies have been pretty sensitive, and you'd want to take some care with them. But the Department of Energy in particular seems like something you'd want to be real careful about, and not just come in and say, like, we're lowering headcount by 50%.
Do it.
Figure it out.
You'll figure it out.
Today, effective today.
Yeah.
It's, yeah. Those are our nukes.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like that we have so many of them, but I would like to think that people looking at them, watching over them,
Keeping
know
an
what
eye
they're
on
doing
things.
them, and aren't spread too thin, and so on.
Yeah.
Anyway, very efficient stuff, Elon. And rounding things out, it should come as no surprise that by the end of the week, Doge was targeting NASA. Now, Elon owns SpaceX,
Could care less.
which has billions of dollars in
called
contracts
this,
with
though.
NASA.
Told you this was going to happen.
Surely he will recuse himself and the multiple Doge lackeys with SpaceX connections from this efficiency audit due to the blatant conflicts of interest.
He
here.
promised. He promised he would.
Yeah.
He said so.
If there's any government department where he has a conflict of interest, it would be the space agency that he works with.
Yeah, he couldn't even
with
like
his rocket company.
He couldn't even come up with an excuse to deny it. I mean, it's right there.
It's right there. So I guess we'll find out in a few days whether he's absolutely full of shit on his conflicts of interest or not. I'm leaning one way on it. Anyway, for some insider insight into how this Doge bullshit has played out, here's Rolling Stone. When security officials at several departments and agencies have responded that they need to check to ensure these young Musk allies have proper clearance to view sensitive databases, Doge staff have routinely erupted in fury. Some have told these security officials that if they don't give them what they want immediately, they'll call Musk's cell phone and give him the officials' names.
Mods.
And have the richest man in the world call and yell at them, or get them reprimanded or fired. Do I need to call Elon? One Doge member barked at a federal security official while demanding access to sensitive information at one agency this month. A source familiar with the exchange tells Rolling Stone. This has happened repeatedly since the dawn of the second Trump administration. At the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, the Treasury Department, at the Office of Personnel Management, and elsewhere. It has become a cruel punchline within the federal bureaucracy. Four sources familiar with the matter tell Rolling Stone that some child from the Doge team will threaten to call Elon Musk if you don't do what the child wants, as one federal career official describes it.
And then they let him through, and the kid goes,
I'm gonna tell Elon.
Mods!
Elon!
Dude, that finally came to...
Elon!
It really came to reality.
Fuck!
So obviously all very efficient stuff. The United States is in great hands.
Little hands, not any lines.
No.
Smooth hands.
They were once little hands, and now they have big South African hands guiding them.
That's right.
Yes.
Big, the palest, the whitest hands you've ever seen.
Yeah. But it's time now to move on to the headlines half of this show. But first, we got to let you know that this episode is sponsored by Public Rec, the makers of our favorite pants in the world, the Daymaker pants. The perfect intersection of comfort and quality.
I'm literally wearing mine right now.
They look great.
Best pants ever.
Let's be real, guys. Wearing uncomfortable clothes just isn't worth it anymore. Why settle for stiff, restricting fabric when you can have something that looks sharp and feels as comfy as your favorite sweats? Well, that's where Public Rec comes in. These pants are a game changer. The pants are designed to be as comfy as your favorite sweats, but way more stylish. We're talking super soft fabric, no stiff seams, and enough stretch to keep up with you whatever your day throws at you. And Public Rec isn't just about pants. They have so many great style options, whether you're working all day in the office, running errands, or just grabbing a drink with the guys. Who doesn't want to look sharp without sacrificing comfort?
And I'll tell you, once you put them on, you're gonna wonder why you ever wore anything else. So, this February, stop settling for the same old stuff. Step up your comfort game with Public Rec. It's about time to treat yourself. For a limited time, our viewers can get 20% off your entire order with code WeeklyWeird at publicrec.com. That's 20% off when you use promo code WeeklyWeird at publicrec.com. Usually, when you order comfortable pants, you only get to pick from small, medium, large, and extra large sizes, but with Public Rec pants, you get to select the exact width and length that you need. Whether you're a 30 by 30 or a 44 by 36, wear well.
First one's on theme, but it is funny.
It's funny, it's troubling,
Yeah.
it's a sign of the times.
Yes.
3 men claiming to be from Doge show up at San Francisco City Hall, demand records.
And who wouldn't give it to them? Because if they don't, they're going to get on the phone and start screaming, Elon!
Well, luckily the people at San Francisco City Hall know that the federal government has absolutely no jurisdiction over their records, and they told these people to fuck off and called the cops on them. And and also, I mean, there's no evidence that this was actually a bunch of Doge employees, which is like, it's almost more troubling. It's the same way we've seen a bunch of people just decide to cosplay as like Border Patrol and ICE and like harass.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you don't need, there's no like identification. You just got to threaten people by saying that, oh, you want your job to not exist? I'll call Elon. Let me in.
Yeah, it's just the threats don't work. Like, what the fuck are you gonna do?
Yeah.
We're a local government.
Keep your threats out of California.
But it's the fact that it was San Francisco too. Like I would dare say that like conservatives in the Bay Area are like some of the most insane conservatives in the country. They're very different than the typical conservative, and they're finally having their moment with big tech and MAGA.
Yeah.
Converging this way. So that's cool. If someone comes to your door saying they're from Doge,
Slam it in their face.
tell them to fuck off.
Yeah.
Kill him. Oh.
Project 2025 is gutting medical funding that helped Russell Vaught's own kid.
Yeah, it's just like with that Emil Bove guy and January 6th. There's people don't really apply the same standards to themselves that they apply to others.
Yeah.
And yeah, Russell Vaught, his kid has cystic fibrosis, which is like a very fucking, it's bad. I had a kid in my elementary school who like died from it. I think in the past like 30 years, there's been a lot of improvements on like quality of life and lifespan for
Wait,
it.
how did they do that? With budgets and research and development?
Thanks to medical research funded by the U.S. government that developed treatments that this guy's own fucking kid uses to stay alive. But really just pulling the ladder up behind him, or selling out his own kid for the sake of his principles.
It's a sacrifice he's willing to make.
Yeah. If I had to choose between my sick kid and America just being a libertarian hellhole, sorry, kid.
Choosing the hellhole every time.
Yeah.
No, that sucks. It's like, it reminds me of that story at this point, a decade ago, where it was the local congressman or senator or something like that had like not gone forward with some restrictions on amusement park rides, and then his son fucking died when he got launched out of that raft, the like world's tallest water slide or whatever. Yeah, fucked up. Speaking of fucked up, Kid Rock cuts Nashville performance short, storms off stage after audience won't clap.
You'd think he'd be in such a great mood right now.
Yeah, you think
You
this would
got
be a
everything
victory
you
lap.
wanted. That's the thing with these people is they're never like satisfied. They're sore winners. And
I come out in public, the public hates me. I go home, I hate myself.
Yeah, and the video of this is even more bizarre because like he wasn't getting booed. It seemed like the crowd was in a good mood, and it was like a birthday party for one of the musicians on stage. And when he starts like complaining, I think everyone like thinks he's doing a bit, like he's riffing on stage.
Oh, here he goes.
But then he actually leaves, and everyone's just like, "What?"
Wow.
I guess he really needs clapping.
He's
Clap for Kid Rock.
not to get into the tabloid side of this, but he has been spotted with Lauren Boebert. Privately.
Oh man. Damn.
That's like a 30-year age gap, isn't it?
I mean, she's seen.
It's a 20-year age gap. It's not that bad.
Yeah.
Still weird.
She also
I don't
she's
think
got
they're
the
going to talk
conservative
about the
woman
stuff
thing
I was
where she
hoping.
seems a little bit
I don't know
older
what
than she
episode it
actually
was
is.
from.
Like the
She's like
press
younger than
secretary?
she's younger than us, but
Yeah.
I was
she's
like
got,
half asleep and it was auto
she's got the look that like adds 10 years.
I'm over a decade older than the White House press secretary.
Yeah, she.
This is the same feeling I get when I go to Dodger games and their stats and ages pop up on the screen, and I just like.
I mean, yeah, with sports, like when that first started happening around like my late 20s, it was weird. Now I've accepted it.
I'm like, there's my favorite player who's 20 years younger than me.
Yeah, let's go, kiddo. Carolyn Levitt, though, the White House press secretary, who is 27 but looks 40.
Yeah.
She's married to a dude who's like 35 years older than her. It's fucking weird.
All right. Well,
She likes them old.
who was the other one? Olivia Nuzzi.
Yeah, nutsy.
Yeah.
There's one congressman I think we talked about one time, but like
That's a lot of nuts.
his wife was like literally a child when they met.
Oh God.
Yeah.
That's like what people say. I don't know. About Dane Cook. I guess was like knew his wife or new wife.
Oh
before
no,
she was 18.
the Dane Cook situation is really fucking gross.
Yeah, it's
like a daughter of some friends of his.
Ugh.
Yeah, and they announced their relationship like right when she turned 18, and it was very clear that like they had been dating for a little while before that, and he is like fucking in his 50s. It's so weird and
Yeah.
gross. But congratulations to the couple.
The gift is in the mail.
In some very metaphorical news, bald eagle euthanized in Massachusetts after bird flu diagnosis.
Jesus. I mean,
It's only been our national bird for what? A month?
yeah.
And we're already euthanizing it for a disease that we are really not taking seriously and is probably going to keep getting worse and worse, despite the effect that it has had on the nation's poultry and eggs supply.
Yeah. Well, who needs a bald eagle when you have the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles, Elliot?
That's right.
Caw! Speaking of birds, Duolingo owl dead. Killed by Cybertruck,
Told you.
company says.
Told
At
you.
least it wasn't bird
Told
flu.
you. Remember? I
Yeah,
said
it was
this.
the other worst thing for the country.
It is funny, like as someone who uses Duolingo on a daily basis but doesn't follow them on social media,
Yeah.
it's two completely separate sides
Yeah.
of the company. Like they've got this whole Duo has like he's got lore.
Yeah, no, he's
online.
always-
It's like Dua Lipa's biggest. He's got a big crush on.
He was
her.
on Twitter for a while saying some nasty shit. Like,
Yeah.
I bet it smelled good in there when like Billie Eilish took a crap or something.
Yeah, if you only use the app, you would never know about any of this shit.
Well, and if you only use the app, you will still not be fluent in whatever language that you're trying to learn.
Yeah, it's not great. It's
You just know terms. It's fine.
I mean,
you can piece things together.
I've learned a lot. I've been able to like talk to workers that come to my house to like install fucking air conditioning and shit.
Yeah.
It's not the best way to learn at all, but it's not nothing either.
I'm sure they really appreciate you trying.
Yeah, they did.
Ringo Starr confirms he's never eaten pizza. It's never come up. Do you have a slice for me right now?
What?
It's just never, the opportunity has never popped
This
up.
is such
Never
old
had
news.
pizza,
The
he's never
Ringo
had
Starr
curry
shit.
either, which like that one's almost more shocking as a British person.
Yeah. Well,
He's never done it. He was in a Pizza Hut.
after users have just left a flurry of negative reviews.
I mean, it's very silly to review the Gulf,
Yes.
the Gulf of Mexico.
Obviously the name changes.
Probably Doge destruction, right?
Bunch of data that they should have absolutely no business access.
Oh no, what happened? I click wrong?
I mean, they already have their booger fingers all over the Medicare and Medicaid systems. They got that earlier this week. So yeah, it's probably safe to assume that nothing is off bounds until anyone steps in to do something. Meanwhile, Elon has continued his destruction unabated.
Elon.
And he had some interesting statements from a call that he was on for the World Government Summit in Dubai on Thursday. And here's the Associated Press with more on that.
Elon Musk called on Thursday for the United States to delete entire agencies
from the federal government as part of his push under President Donald Trump to radically cut spending and restructure its priorities. A lot of attention has been on USAID, for example, Musk said, referring to Trump's dismantling of the U.S. Agency for International Development. There's like the National Endowment for Democracy, but I'm like, okay, well, how much democracy have they achieved lately? He added that the U.S. under Trump is less interested in interfering with the affairs of other countries. Which, okay, it's pretty obvious which countries this administration will be less interested in interfering with.
Like we just saw, he's like, I've spoken to Russian President Vladimir Putin. We've decided that he wins.
We're going hands off with that thing in particular, but then we're also gonna like try to bully Greenland into selling, or bully Denmark into selling Greenland to us. I don't know. We might invade Panama.
And we're also gonna have a presence and a quote unquote rehabilitation presence in Gaza. So that's So interfering, we'll be very particular about it.
Yeah, so hands off. But it continues. He also noted the Trump administration's focus on eliminating diversity, equity, and inclusion work, at one point linking it to AI. If, hypothetically, AI is designed for DEI, diversity at all costs, it could decide that there's too many men in power and execute them, Musk said.
Folks, this is a life or death situation.
The Grok is going to kill us all.
Grok has been threatening me privately.
Grok is woke, unfortunately. Tim Pool was right.
Haven't heard much from him lately.
I'm sure he's having a great time.
It continues. Musk also announced plans for a Dubai Loop.
Shut up!
A project in line with his work in the Boring Company, which is digging tunnels in Las Vegas to speed transit.
He belongs out there. They love this shit.
Yeah.
They love, like, the Emirates and Saudi Arabia fucking love, like, everything similar to, like, the Hyperloop and the Boring Company. They love coming up with these like concepts of like futuristic bullshit that have no fucking chance of ever happening,
and have so far never worked in any capacity.
Yeah. So like,
they've been doing the air taxi thing for a while now, and it's like,
well, the big one, the Saudi one, is they want a city that's like 1 mile wide and like 500 miles long with a single train line going through it called the Line.
Yes. A later statement from Dubai's Crown Prince, Sheikh Hamdan bin Mohammed Al Maktoum, said the city-state and the Boring Company will explore the development of a 17-kilometer, 10.5-mile underground network with 11 stations that could transport over 20,000 passengers an hour. He offered no financial terms for the deal.
It's going to be like a wormhole,
Musk promised.
You just wormhole from one part of the city, boom, you're in another part of the city.
Yeah, okay, you know what? Go nuts. Dubai, go nuts. Yeah. Hire this guy, and he's going to build the city of your dreams. He's definitely good for it. In fact, go ahead and take out enough contracts that he just stays out of our hair for a while, while also failing to deliver anything that you've paid him handsomely to do.
But you got to admit, it's a pretty brilliant idea. Like, instead of taking the roads and cars, you go
underground in some kind of train-like thing. You know what?
Go through these like tube-like holes in the ground, and you come out on the other side. And there's no traffic or anything.
A wormhole around the city.
What'll he come up with next?
Mr. Musk, you've done it. You've invented the subway once again. We're all proud of you, and you get not only a gold star sticker, we're putting your idea on the fridge. Yeah. So Musk really is the monorail salesman from The Simpsons. And yes, I know that's a reference to the Music Man. But Musk, though, different from that swindler, is somehow in charge of our country, while the fat guy just sits in the cuck chair.
Yeah, maybe he likes the cuck chair.
Every Oval Office got a cuck chair.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you think he lets Putin sit in the Resolute desk while he sits in the cuck chair?
I don't know.
No. That's why he made all the reporters get out last time.
All right, everybody out.
I got some shoes to shine.
But while we're on the topic of Musk, whose conflicts of interest continue to pile up despite his insistence that he will stop himself at any moment,
trust him.
The State Department found out that everyone saw their 2025 procurement document, the one that listed a $400 million order for armored Tesla production units. And they decided to say, no, actually, you didn't see that.
Yeah.
Fake news. That $400 million is simply for armored electric vehicles.
Could be anything.
Could Could be anyone's ready to manufacture ugly as sin, allegedly bulletproof electric armored vehicles. Who's to say?
Yeah, we're going to figure it out. This
Yeah.
budget's very suspicious. We're going to get to the bottom of it.
Could be a Chevy Bolt with the Truckzilla thing on top of it.
Yeah.
You never know.
Could be one of those weird looking postal service vans with the very, very low front end, which is good because it doesn't run people over.
That's right.
Yeah, could be that.
So here's Business Insider with more on that. The State Department has scrubbed mention of armored Teslas from its 2025 procurement forecast. The procurement document previously contained a line item that read, Armored Tesla Production Units. It was listed as a 5-year contract and valued at $400 million, making it the biggest item on the list. As of Wednesday night at 9:12 p.m. Eastern, the line item has been revised. It now reads Armored Electric Vehicles. It's still listed as a 5-year contract worth $400 million. The latest version of the document doesn't mention Tesla.
Yeah, you just didn't see that. And with the benefit of a couple of days in between the news cycles, that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, you'll forget about it.
It continues,
I'm pretty sure Tesla isn't getting $400 million. No one mentioned it to me, at least.
Musk wrote on X on Thursday about the department's revised forecast. News of the $400 million State Department contract with Tesla was reported by DropSite News on Wednesday. It's unclear when the procurement list was first released. The State Department updates its forecast in the first quarter of every fiscal year. When contacted for comment, a State Department spokesperson told Business Insider that no government contract for armored electric vehicles has been awarded to Tesla or any other vehicle manufacturer. Well, I mean, that handles that. Trump's State Department rep said that it's not happening, and then Musk was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then on the procurement list, they just did a little edit and bip, bop, boop. I guess that handles that conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Nothing else to see here, and definitely don't think about the billions of dollars that Musk has already received over the years and continues to receive from the U.S. government across multiple administrations, all while he completely dismantles agencies and departments that provide vital services to countless American citizens,
Not anymore.
many of whom aren't even aware of how these changes will drastically affect their lives and the lives of their families.
They won't even notice.
Because as he said, he really does want to pull up every single root of these programs so that they can't grow back. And that is, of course, ironic because earlier he said, well, if something actually messes up, we would quickly rebuild it.
Wink.
Yes.
Winky wink.
X, put your fingers crossed and behind your back.
Now, speaking of something that's going to be really hard to get back when it's gone, the Department of Education has already been hit by Musk's Gooner Squad, terminating a reported $1 billion in U.S. Department of Education contracts, according to The Guardian, who adds, the huge budget cuts have essentially wiped out the federal agency's Research and Statistics Office, one of the country's largest funders of education research, the Institute of Education Sciences, IES. IES gathers and disseminates data and research on a variety of subjects, including but not limited to the state of U.S. student achievement, school crime and safety, and high school science course completion. Their research is used widely by educators, state and local departments of education, school districts, colleges, and other researchers. Well, you can't have a failing grade on all those data points if there's no one to grade the data, so...
Or even collect the data
Yeah.
or anything at all. I mean,
School's out forever!
we made all of our students straight A students with this one weird trick.
Yeah, we invented a new curve.
It starts way up here.
Yeah.
So now, just a few days after the Teen Boy Squad got their hands on those Department of Education contracts, and after signaling for months that they are going to try and completely destroy the department, Linda McMahon.
Ba-ba-da-ba.
I don't think she walks like her husband, but I love the spirit. That is, you're right, yes, the WWE's Linda McMahon, who at the confirmation hearing had Triple H right behind her.
Yeah, that's their son-in-law.
I know,
Hilarious.
but just in case anyone got wise,
Yeah.
smack him around a bit. So he was there behind her, making sure that everything was going fine. And she was there, awaiting confirmation for a department that she doesn't even want to be the head of, and the administration doesn't even want in general.
It's a great job because you're running a department that soon will not even exist.
It's like, oh God, what's the term? It's on the tip of my tongue right now. Where like you hire someone intentionally to do a bad job to ruin something.
Oh,
There's a term for it. You'll put it in
Yeah.
the comments. But it's what run it so badly that it's just completely destroyed. It's like when it was DeJoy took over the postal
He's
service.
still in charge.
Yeah, but it was right during the 2020 election, and he really tried to fuck that up. They were throwing machines out.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Anyways, this plan of dismantling the department, it didn't take her by surprise. She's in on it. She will take steps to dismantle the department when confirmed, though she did stop short of outright saying she would toss the entire department in the wood chipper. Here's the Associated Press. Linda McMahon on Thursday sketched out how key functions of the education department could be carved up to achieve President Donald Trump's goal of dismantling the agency, vowing to reorient the department while continuing some of its largest programs.
There was nothing
McMahon
about the
sought to
banned
reassure
words there
senators that
either.
politically popular programs were safe. Yet at the same time, she promised to cut federal money from schools and colleges that defy Trump's demands, including his executive orders against transgender athletes, campus anti-Semitism, and diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. In a tense exchange, Democratic Senator Chris Murphy asked McMahon to clarify the boundaries of Trump's order banning DEI in schools. McMahon said events celebrating Martin Luther King Jr. should be allowed, but she hesitated when asked about African American history classes. "I'm not quite certain," she said. "I'd like to look into it further." Ma'am, can you just be clear? Do you think African American history should be taught in schools?
I don't know.
I'll have to get back to you on that.
Yeah. I mean, I know I'm here to interview for the job of head of the Department of Education, but that's a tough one.
Yeah.
It's a really tough one. I'll circle back.
Yeah, we will get back to you on that.
They add that a plan being considered by the White House would direct the education secretary to dismantle the department as much as legally possible while asking Congress to abolish it completely. At a White House news conference last week, Trump said he wanted McMahon to put herself out of a job. Even without an order to close the department, the Trump administration has been overhauling many aspects of its work. DOJ cut $900 million in contracts for the Education Department office that tracks progress of students in schools across America, raising alarms about the future of the work it has done to support research and track achievement gaps. On Wednesday, the department fired at least 39 employees who were in a one-year probation period, according to a union that represents agency workers. The firings include civil rights workers, special education specialists, and student aid officials.
Yeah.
Don't need any of those jobs. Nah,
Sounds
sounds kind of woke, actually.
It's infuriating.
DEI.
Especially when and everything's in the chopping block, but first in the chopping block are programs aimed at the most vulnerable students possible.
Something that doesn't get like as much attention, but definitely seems to be a pattern, is disability rights.
Yeah.
Are also on the chopping block
And
in a
handled
lot of
greatly
ways.
by the Department of Education.
Yeah, and I mean, it's definitely a subplot that keeps rearing its head. It's like, oh, all of the very few like accommodations that disabled people get in this fucking country, we're getting rid of that shit.
Well, yeah. Again, every day there is some new, previously boring standard government procedure, agency, department, or whatever that is being targeted by Musk and his boys. And they're really picking apart some useful stuff before even beginning to question the United States military and police budgets. They'll get to it.
Well,
I'm
the
sure.
police, that's local.
Yeah.
And sometimes we give them some free tanks.
Yeah.
That's we tax right off for us.
Mm-hmm.
It's free tank for them.
There you go. Anyways, we have more news for you. Some of it shockingly unrelated to Trump and Musk, but it is. First, let's take a second to thank today's sponsor, though, for keeping our bellies full of delicious, nutritious, easy to heat and eat meals. This episode is brought to you by Factor. Ready to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well easy. They're dietitian approved and ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes, so you can fuel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you.
Let's have Anna talk about it, huh? Why not?
Scientists at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, are basically scrambling to revise their research in order to comply with new federal rules that insist scientists avoid using terms like gender, transgender, pregnant person, pregnant people, LGBT, transsexual, non-binary, non-binary without the little dash in the middle. It goes on and on. Assigned male at birth, assigned female at birth, biologically male, biologically female. Now, those terms came from an email that was sent to CDC scientists that was published by a Substack called Inside Medicine. Scientists have also been told to retract or pause all of their pending publications to ensure that research containing those forbidden terms are not published. And it's unknown how many publications have been affected by this new rule, but given that many use the term gender interchangeably with the term sex, which honestly, they're two different things. They shouldn't do that anyway. But since they do, a lot of these studies are gonna have to be revised. So this all has to do with a recent executive order that was implemented by the Trump administration. That order directs agencies throughout the government to stop offering gender identity as a choice on government forms and to end funding of gender ideology. Last Wednesday, the Office of Personnel Management, which by the way, Elon Musk has now gained some access to, distributed a memo that called for an end to all agency programs that use taxpayer money to promote or reflect gender ideology. The OPM memo said agencies need to take down all outward-facing media, websites, social media accounts, etc., that inculcate or promote gender ideology. Agencies must terminate grants, programs, and outward-facing media. They must also withdraw any final or pending documents, directives, orders, regulations, materials, forms, communications, statements, and plans that inculcate or promote gender ideology, according to the memo. So federal agencies are attempting to comply with these new rules, but they're given pretty vague instruction, and it seems like there's a lot of collateral damage as a result. So I want to give you a few examples. The agency's HIV content was entirely offline briefly on Friday.
This is so boring in comparison to their fucking shit that they had where they were talking about. I was fucking laughing my ass off because I woke up in the middle of them reporting on it. So I fell asleep with the TV on, right? Like I always do.
Though parts of it have since been restored. Some data, such as the Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance System and the CDC's Social Vulnerability Index, were unavailable on Friday afternoon. You guys gotta rename let's go back to the youth risk thing. The Youth Risk Vulnerability, what was it? The Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance System is a scary sounding name. They gotta name it something different.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, but I don't know what that group does, so I'm not trying to.
See, it was probably a mad old video that I didn't see until recently.
What do you think about this, Cenk?
Dumb, wrong, unscientific.
Great.
Here we go again. What are you doing? So.
My bad. I do have information about let me clarify. Sorry.
Okay, right.
Hold that thought. So it turns out that the Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance System basically provides extensive information about the scope of mental health problems affecting US youth, okay? So especially when it comes to depression, suicidal ideation, alcoholism, and drug use.
Any Jewish person that does
so it's an
business
important group, but
yeah,
rename. Go ahead.
Okay, so we're gonna take out all information about gender. How about demographic information? It's in every scientific study. So we're gonna take out every scientific study's demos. In fact, you're not allowed to publish them if you have demographic information. So first of all, on that alone already, and then you get into the LGBTQ issues. Well, what if it's a report about AIDS? We're not allowed to say LGBTQ? I mean, how dumb is this?
That's super dumb.
Okay, and then secondly, I thought you guys were against cancel culture. Now we're canceling words, and we're canceling scientific papers because it has naughty words in them. We don't like those words. Okay, you can keep going in that direction.
This is fucking so bad.
But you know what that is? That's culture wars. And that's identity politics, and that's garbage. And shutting down science because you don't like the words in it is the epitome of cancel culture and super dumb. So if you objected to a particular report, Then you object to that report and go, hey, this was wrong. We covered one last week about the DEI at the FAA. Wasn't DEI, it was a diversity program. And yeah, that won't sucked, right? And so if you point that out, you win on that stuff. But when you cancel all science because it has demographic information and words in it, you look ridiculous.
So a page from the Health and Human Services Office for Civil Rights outlining the rights of LGBTQ plus people in healthcare settings was also gone as of Friday. So these are specific examples. And yeah, you're right. This is the right-wing brand of culture wars, and it's the pendulum that just keeps swinging back and forth, back and forth. And the people who get caught up in the middle of that are the people who suffer. And those are ordinary Americans who need this research, who need to access it. And so taking it off of official government websites in order to, comply with Donald Trump's brand of culture wars is unacceptable. So that's what we're dealing with here. And then finally, I'll just say that even if the CDC does retrofit all of its research to essentially go along with the Trump administration's executive order or guidelines, it would still be unable to publish new material. And that's because Trump froze the agency's external communications last week, along with other health agencies in order to review their public messaging. So that's another element to the story that you should be aware of.
So freezing websites that actually give people health information. And that's going to make America great again? And that is somehow a populist position? Yeah, I'm stretching to see how in the world you could possibly think that. And I get it, Go play your own identity politics. Oh, we'll rile people up with trans issues and LGBTQ issues. Meanwhile, maybe they won't notice that we have access to the entire Treasury Department and handed it over to our largest donor. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it.
Found it.
Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships.
Shut up, Jink. No!
Lamar really did get a stadium full of.
Let the fish have it.
Well, also on the chopping block in recent days, anything even closely resembling a DEI initiative or any phrases that could potentially be tied to our country's greatest enemy, which is, of course, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
The axis of evil.
Over on Judd Legum's Popular Info, he acquired a memo that was distributed to National Security Agency leadership listing 27 words that are banned moving forward. And also, it demanded that the NSA delete any websites or internal network content that contained the banned words. And despite taking a great risk of potentially losing our channel by uttering these offensive words, brace yourself. These are the words that the Trump administration have deemed way too naughty.
Shit, piss, fuck. Oh wait, no, those were George Carlin's 7 phrases you
Got
can't
him.
say on television. Here are the Trump administration's 27 words that you can't say at all. Yeah. Anti-racism, racism, allyship, bias, DEI, diversity, diverse, confirmation bias. What? Equity, equitableness, feminism, gender, gender identity, inclusion, inclusive, all-inclusive, inclusivity, injustice, intersectionality, prejudice, privilege, racial identity, sexuality, what? Stereotypes, pronouns, transgender, equality. I feel like a lot of these probably have a lot of usage outside of the double meanings, the specific meaning they're targeting here.
Yeah. How is Eric Adams going to get his all-inclusive trips to and from Turkey? We'll get to him in a second. But yeah, there's a lot of words there that you would assume could get caught up in some kind of filter that they're using to just mass delete a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I saw like some scientists posting on Blue Sky over the past couple of weeks of like being told by their bosses to just go and like find and replace. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Because like, in the scientific the word diverse it's not talking about race all the time. It's talking
Put the Latin word in there.
like so they're just like having to do this like
Workaround.
yeah, it's actually they come up with synonyms to words.
It's like how the TikTok kids go around saying suicide and other things.
Grape.
Yeah, and unalive.
Yeah.
So that's what scientists are doing now to keep research alive. Cool.
Anyway,
Well, all those words that we just said definitely gonna get some people very angry at us.
should probably bleep them all.
Yeah.
I can already hear the alarm bells on YouTube's back end going off, finding us multiple credits for violating the verbal morality statute.
But we don't care.
No,
We don't care.
we're not on board with that.
No.
But it's okay because today's episode is sponsored, so it doesn't matter. YouTube, do what you will.
Yeah.
Because Turtle Beach is sponsoring this show and shielding us from demonetization and shielding our ears from bad audio. Their big turtle shell is protecting us from YouTube's censorship.
Winter has arrived, but don't panic. That's not a bad thing. It's an excuse to cancel all your plans, slap on your Turtle Beach headset, and game until the sun finally decides to come back. For a marathon winter gaming session, you're going to want the most comfortable headset in the world with superhuman hearing technology. Turtle Beach's new Gen 3 Stealth 700 headset picks up so much crystal clear sound, it's basically cheating. Even if the snowblower is going off outside, you will hear every footstep, every reload, every enemy sneaking up on you like they're stomping through your living room in tap dancing shoes.
And Turtle Beach headsets are so freaking comfortable, you'll feel like you're wearing a marshmallow cloud pillow on your head. Best of all, the Stealth 700 has the industry's first ever crossplay dual wireless transmitter system. That means you can seamlessly switch between your consoles and PC with just a click of a button. And it gets even better. While being connected to your console, the Stealth 700 can connect with your phone for music streaming or taking calls at the same time. Imagine listening
A lot of sounds in that game, a lot of things to listen
to many sounds.
Not only is it super comfortable for those long gaming sessions, and it definitely gives you the sound quality and the edge that you need, the battery life is insane. It is very nice having a wireless headset that you almost never have to think about charging. We all have that one friend whose headset always seems to die right when you're down to the last two teams. It's got boogers in it. It's gross. But Turtle Beach's Stealth 700, booger-free. And it has an insane 80-hour battery life with quick charge, so you rarely have to think about charging
the headset get
and they don't
boogers in
have
it?
just amazing headsets. They have every gaming accessory you could ever want. .com with promo code TODAYDAILY.
Back to the news now. And remember that tiny little
I
pointless
thought they were going to continue talking about it, but I guess not. Wah, wah.
trade war that Trump kicked off against Canada and Mexico last week?
You could forget, with everything that's going on, we almost got into a significant trade war.
Trade war.
Our two neighbors, yeah.
So that was the one that only lasted a few hours before everyone agreed there was a stupid idea. Remember that? Well, I guess Trump found a workaround because on Monday of this week, Trump raised tariffs on steel and aluminum imports to 25%. You probably already know where this is going, but where do you think the U.S. imports a majority of its steel and aluminum from?
Yeah,
That's right, Canada and Mexico.
we really love sticking it to our best trading partners and geographical neighbors. Don't he said I couldn't do it, but I found a way.
Here's Reuters with more. The tariffs would hit allies as the four biggest sources of steel imports are Canada, Brazil, Mexico, and South Korea.
That's the way to four of all your best friend. Just Jesus fucking Christ.
And I also have no doubt that you'll be a voice of clarity and courage on the world stage for the values that we in Israel, you in America hold dear, the values of freedom for all those who cherish liberty. You're already doing that, and I want to tell you that it's heard loud and clear here and everywhere else. Today, Secretary Rubio and I had a very productive discussion with our staffs on a number of issues. None of them are more important than Iran. Israel and America stand shoulder to shoulder in countering the threat of Iran. We agreed that the Ayatollahs must not have nuclear weapons. And we also agreed that Iran's aggression in the region has to be rolled back. Over the last 16 months, Israel has dealt a mighty blow to Iran's terror axis. Under the strong leadership of President Trump and with your unflinching support, I have no doubt that we can and will finish the job. We also spoke a great deal about Gaza. I thank Secretary Rubio for President Trump's assistance in helping us secure the release of another 3 hostages yesterday. These are hostages that Hamas refused to support only a few days to release only a few days earlier. And I also thanked him for America's unequivocal backing for Israel's policy in Gaza in moving forward. I want to assure everyone who's now listening to us, President Trump and I are working in full cooperation and coordination between us. We have a common strategy, and we can't always share the details of this strategy with the public, including when the gates of hell will be opened, as they surely will if all our hostages are not released until the last one of them. Israel is determined to achieve all the war objectives we set after the horrific attack on October 7th, the worst attack on Jews since the Holocaust. We will eliminate Hamas's military capability and its political rule in Gaza. We will bring all our hostages home, and we will ensure that Gaza never again poses a threat to Israel. The unequivocal support of the United States on Gaza will help us achieve these objectives faster and set us on a path for a different future. Secretary Rubio and I discussed President Trump's bold vision for Gaza, for Gaza's future, how we can work together to ensure that that future becomes a reality. We also discussed the situation in Syria after the collapse of Assad's regime, a collapse that was made possible by Israel's weakening of Iran's terror axis, especially the weakening of Hezbollah and the removal of Nasrallah. For over a decade before October 7th, Israel acted to prevent Iran from developing new terror fronts against us in Syria, right opposite the Golan Heights and deeper in Syria. And we conducted hundreds of airstrikes, perhaps 1,000, in order to prevent it, and we did. Now, if any other force in Syria today believes that Israel will permit other hostile forces to use Syria as a base of operations against us, they are gravely mistaken. Israel will act to prevent any threat from emerging near our border in southwest Syria. The Secretary and I discussed Lebanon as well. Israel is committed to the ceasefire understandings that were reached in November. We expect the government of Lebanon to be equally committed to their fulfillment. The scenes we saw this weekend in Beirut of UNIFIL forces being attacked by Hezbollah, this was not encouraging. The two UN resolutions that everyone refers to, 1559, 1701, well, they must be fully implemented. Hezbollah must be disarmed. And Israel would prefer that the Lebanese army do that job. But no one should doubt that Israel will do what it has to do to enforce the understandings of the ceasefire and defend our security. The Secretary and I also discussed how the many international institutions have been hijacked and turned into anti-American and anti-Israeli forums. We see that in the UN General Assembly, in the UN Human Rights Commission, where anti-Americanism is rampant, and more resolutions are passed about Israel than the rest of the world combined. And we see it especially in the lawfare that is being waged against America and Israel at the ICC, the ICJ, and elsewhere. The ICC has outrageously libeled Israel and issued arrest warrants based on utter lies. Like America, Israel is not subject to the jurisdiction of the ICC and does not accept the court's authority. Israel commends President Trump and his administration for restoring his executive order against the ICC and for moving quickly to sanction ICC officials.
Why do they have such a hard-on for Iran? Why does Iran have such a hard-on for them? This goes both ways.
Secretary and I discussed working together to formulate a common strategy to deal with the threat of lawfare and neutralize this threat once and for all.
Once and for all.
So these are some of the issues we discussed today. Believe it or not, there were more, many more.
Okay.
We can say that the Middle East today has many opportunities, many challenges, and we think we can realize the opportunities and also meet the challenges. And I have no doubt that working together, America and Israel will overcome the challenges and seize the opportunities. I have to say that I'm absolutely confident that under President Trump's leadership and working together with you, Secretary Rubio, Marco, the best days of our alliance are still yet to come. Welcome to Jerusalem. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. It is an honor to be back here. I've been here many times before as an American visiting and then as a member of the United States Senate, but now for the first time as the Secretary of State of the United States, and it's an honor to be here. And it's an honor to serve in this role on behalf of President Donald Trump, who, as you've accurately stated, Mr. Prime Minister, is a tremendous friend of Israel. There's been no stronger ally for Israel in the White House than President Trump. He's also a man that speaks clearly and unambiguously. and makes clear his views on issues.
Like, why doesn't it show me all the fucking chats? I don't fucking get it why it doesn't fucking just work. It works fine for Jack. Jack can always see all the chats, but when I fucking sign into any of this shit and try and stream, I have to have multiple windows open to see the chats for each thing.
The first he's made
Like,
clear
it's like impossible to keep up with chats when I can't fucking
hostages
read
need
them.
to come home. They need to be released, and you work in very close coordination with him. He's working in very close coordination, but with the Prime Minister and his government, in ensuring that that happens. That must happen. It's not optional. And would add that that's a goal we share in common, and that is something we work on very closely together. The President's also been very bold about his view of what the future for Gaza should be. Not the same tired ideas of the past, but something that's new, bold, and something that frankly took courage and vision in order to outline. And it may have shocked and surprised many, but what cannot continue is the same cycle where we repeat over and over again and wind up in the exact same place. Related to that, the President's been very clear. Hamas cannot continue as a military or government force. And frankly, as long as it stands as a force that can govern, or as a force that can administer, or as a force that can threaten by use of violence, peace becomes impossible. They must be eliminated. It must be eradicated. On the broader issues that we discussed as well is the questions in Syria. And while the fall of Assad is certainly promising and important, if Syria replacing one destabilizing force for another is not a positive development. And that is something that we will watch very carefully as we seek to craft our own strategy with regards to how to approach the events in Syria. In the case of Lebanon, our goals are aligned and the same. A strong Lebanese state that can take on and disarm Hezbollah. The common theme in all of these challenges is Iran. It is the single greatest source of instability in the region. Behind every terrorist group, behind every act of violence, behind every destabilizing activity, behind everything that threatens peace and stability for the millions of people who call this region home, is Iran. And by Iran, I mean the Ayatollahs. By Iran, I mean its regime. A regime who, by the way, its people don't support.
What program do I use
the people
for chat?
of Iran are...
It's Restream. Anytime I try to go through Restream, it doesn't work. So I have a choice where I can either just only stream to Twitch and I can see all my chats in window, or I can stream to YouTube and Twitch and see like none of my chats. But like there's a huge difference in like viewers when it comes to YouTube. Like a large chunk and most of our viewers are coming from YouTube. So why wouldn't I stream to YouTube? But it works fine for Jack. That's what I don't get. Like, why does it work fine for him, but when I fucking am using the accounts, it doesn't fucking work for me?
victims of that regime. And so I think it's important to constantly point that whether we talk about Hamas, or we talk about Hezbollah, or we talk about violence in the West Bank, or we talk about destabilization in Syria, or we talk about any of these issues, the militias in Iraq, they all have behind them one common theme: Iran. And that must be addressed. And there can never be a nuclear Iran. A nuclear Iran that could then hold itself immune from pressure and from action. That can never happen. The President's been clear about that as well. And so I close where I began by reiterating our strong support for our allies, very close allies and partners here in Israel, to the people of this great country, for whom we have tremendous love and respect for everything you're facing, have faced, and continue to face. It is an extraordinary story of bravery. A nation founded in the ashes and in the aftermath of a horrifying crime against humanity, stood from its very inception, from the very day of its birth, against threats from every angle and every corner, and has served as an example to the world of a pluralistic society, a free enterprise democracy, and one that if there were more Israels in the Middle East, more countries like that, the world would be a safer and a better
I'm Allie
place.
Rogan. John Yang is away.
This is what we hope
As
for
the
the
Munich
region
security
and for
Stop! Fucking annoying.
a nation that's always sought peace, but will not allow itself to. And on that front,
I can't even mute the
we
site
can
on
always
one
count
of
on
my
us,
fucking browsers,
as long
even
as
though
I'm
they're
in this
different accounts.
position
These are
and
great.
President Trump is in the White House. So thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, little too patty.
Mr. Prime Minister, are you committed to negotiating peace to a ceasefire?
Patty, patty, patty cake, patty cake, patty cake.
European Union is talking about banning food imports from the U.S. kind of along the lines of reciprocal
Why is that? Why?
Reciprocal tariffs. They don't like the
That's all right. I don't mind. Let them do it. Let them do it. They're just hurting themselves if they do that. I can't imagine it, but it doesn't matter. We're having reciprocal tariffs. Whatever they charge, we charge. Very simple. If a certain country like India, which is very high tariff, if they charge us X dollars, we charge them X dollars. It's all right. It's a fair thing to do. Even the media said it was fair. And it's going to be very good for the United States.
Do you have an on your timing of your meeting with Putin in Saudi Arabia?
No, no time set, but it could be very soon.
This month?
Well, it'll be soon. We'll see what happens. But they're meeting right now. And that's more. I mean, this should have been done 4 years ago, 3 years ago before it started. But it should have been done immediately after it started, as opposed to now, 3 years later.
Your egg prices have reached an all-time high. What's your
Which is
administration?
what?
Egg prices have reached an
Well,
all-time
there's
high.
a flu. It was a long, before I ever got here, it was at an all-time. This didn't start. Remember, I've been here for 3 weeks. And when you saw the inflation numbers, I've been here for 3 weeks. I have had nothing to do with inflation. This was caused by Biden. I had 4 years of virtually no inflation. So I'm just taking over. But I'll tell you what, this country has made more progress in the last 3 weeks than it's made in the last 4 years. And we're respected again as a country. Thank you very much. Thank you.
JD Pondon, dude. Yeah. I'd be running over being like, listen, one China. Everybody knows this. America says it all the time. One China, baby. China number one. Okay. China has always been number one. China number one. Taiwan also part of China. Chinese Taipei, I mean. Okay. Let's watch Chinese dominance instead of the foreign minister. Let's watch the guts. The guts.
Neither one of the tests showed up
This
on my
international student in
fucking
my class was
browser. Isn't
telling
it
me
great?
about how his evangelical dad in Beijing believes that Trump was chosen by God to win the election. But
Only
that
on my
this
laptop
victory
can I see
is
them.
part of a larger divine plan to destroy the United States.
Wait, where did I hear this? This is like a meme, isn't it? I've heard this before. Didn't someone in my community tell me this? Or was it a tweet? Oh, it's a tweet.
I cannot afford eggs, therefore all immigrants must, is a conclusion that some governments and people have reached throughout history, such as Germany in the 30s, America now, and Germany now as well. The reason why I like being Eastern European is because life in Eastern Europe,
Joining me now is Border Czar Tom Homan. Tom, it's great to have you. Thank you so much for being here. The arrests are up, and yet you still get pushback from the sanctuary cities. How significant is that pushback, and is it stopping you from doing your job?
Oh, it's absolutely not going to stop us. I mean, it makes our job more difficult, makes the job more dangerous. I mean, the numbers, as you said, we're more than twice the numbers as Joe Biden had a year ago from today. And the vast majority of them being public safety threats. But am I happy? No, I want more. Because we had, last count, we had over 600,000 illegal aliens with criminal convictions walking the streets of this country. So we got a lot of them to find. But sanctuary city makes it difficult. What's most concerning, though, it makes it more dangerous. When we can arrest a bad guy in a county jail, if one officer arrests one guy in the safety and security of a county jail or a state prison. But when these sanctuary cities release a public safety threat back into the public, which on its face is just ridiculous. It's more dangerous for the ICE officers to make that arrest. It's more dangerous for the alien, and it's certainly more dangerous for the communities. Releasing a public safety threat back in the community is just dumb, and it puts the communities at great risk of more crime. So we want to work with the sanctuary cities and get into the jail. Give us access to the guy that you locked in a jail cell. That's who we want to talk to.
Well, I mean, look, you've got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez doing webinars to explain to illegal immigrants how to evade ICE arrests, and then she tweeted out after something you said maybe she's going to be in trouble now, and she says maybe he can learn to read the Constitution would be a good place to start. She's continuing her resist efforts against your efforts, Tom.
Look, I forgot more about the Constitution, immigration enforcement as you ever know. I mean, I had to educate her during congressional testimony that entering the country illegally is a crime. So, whatever. But what she needs to do is read the statutes enacted by Congress. Title 8, United States Code 1324, United States. Title 8, United States Code 1324 and 25. That's what she needs to read, because it's illegal to enter this country. It's a crime to enter this country illegally. Not only that, when you harbor and conceal and impede law enforcement, that's a felony. So what she's doing, she says she's educating them as to the constitutional rights, and we all know they got constitutional rights. But what she's really doing, you and I and the rest of the country knows, she's trying to teach them how to evade law enforcement. Now, I just said, well, out of the gate, we're concentrating on public safety threats, national security threats. So she's educating those in the country illegally with a significant criminal conviction, public safety threat. Don't open your door, don't dot the I's. Here's how you invade law enforcement. Let's hope she's not educating the next person who gets out and murders a young college student in Georgia. I mean, these are bad people we're looking for. So she can call it education all she wants, but we all know it's about evading law enforcement. These people have been ordered removed, but people we're looking for it now have final orders. They're criminals. They're in the country illegally. A judge has ordered them removed. They become a fugitive. And these are the folks she's helping? So I've asked the Department of Justice to look at this. Where is the line on impediment? Where does that fine line so we can instruct ICE officers what they can do when people don't open the doors or try to evade their arrest? So I simply asked DOJ, give me a legal opinion, because every Department of Justice will interpret things differently. What is the legal opinion on impediment? And we'll see what happens.
How significant are the businesses that the dangerous cartels have started up in America? I'm talking about the human trafficking businesses, the safe houses in several cities in this country, and the stash houses, as well as the drug cartel business. How significant has that business become that the drug cartels are running inside America?
Look, the drug cartels are like a Fortune 500 company. Some of these drug cartels, the Jalisco cartel, they're operating in 43 nations, 43 different countries around the globe. They used to be, back in my day when I was an agent, they were responsible for, smuggling drugs into the United States and to our major cities, and it'd be distributed by local gangs. Now they have a footprint in every major city in this nation. They have taken over the distribution channels within the United States. They have a strong foothold here, and that's why we're concentrating. We're concentrating on drug cartels. We're concentrating on TDA, Tren de Agua. I'm not going to be happy to every single one of Tren de Aguas out of this country. They need to be eradicated, along with MS-13. Well, this is why President Trump, again, he proves every day why he's the greatest president of my lifetime. He designated them terrorist organizations. Why did he do that? Because they've killed more Americans than every terrorist organization in the world combined. They've killed thousands of journalists and law enforcement in Mexico. They've killed thousands of citizens. They're acting like a terrorist organization. They've killed more Americans than any terrorist organization. So President Trump did the right thing. Designate them a terrorist organization. We'll bring the weight of the world on them. President Trump will wipe them off the face of the earth by the time he's done.
And that has allowed you to get tougher on them because he has deemed them terrorist organizations.
Absolutely. President Trump. Look what this president's done in just the first month of him being in office. Illegal crossings on the border are down 90%. 90% in just a matter of a couple of weeks. And what does that mean, Maria? It means less people are dying crossing the border. Less Americans are dying from fentanyl overdoses. Less women and children being sex trafficked across that border. Less terrorists are getting in. President Trump has taken incredible action on the border. We're already at a high state of security on the southern border. We're arresting twice as many illegal alien criminals that Biden did. We're on a lightning speed to do what the president promised the American people he would do.
Tom, thank you so much for your efforts. We're watching your work. We so appreciate your time this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Border czar Tom Homan joining us. Quick.
Well, I haven't been making overtly political videos for very long, and to be fair, I haven't really been alive for very long at the ripe old age of 23. I, like many of you, have been steeping in the world of online political discourse for what has felt like my entire life. I also made the grave mistake of pursuing a degree in a political social science, so luckily for me, my entire education has also revolved around various attempts to understand how politics operates in the age of the internet. And one of the most common political themes I've seen referred to in the past decade on social media is that of the alt-right pipeline. The idea is that there's a mechanism that exists on the internet which, primarily through recommendation algorithms on video sharing sites like YouTube or TikTok, captures the attention of your average Joe and slowly pushes their views further and further toward the right. Now, in academia, the alt-right pipeline term refers specifically to this algorithmic mechanism. However, I think most of us use it in a more broad way to sort of refer to the process of radicalization that can occur not just on video sharing sites, but on other social media, forums and Shan boards, and in certain offline local communities as well. And while there is a lot of media out there talking about the concept of the alt-right pipeline and how it works, I want to pose a different question today. Why is there no alt-left pipeline? We're going to walk through a quick framework to answer that question as simply as we can, but before we do that, a quick disclaimer. This is not going to be incredibly in-depth in terms of analysis, but I do plan on expanding on some of these topics in later videos. The main goal is to answer the question without overly complicating things. So, let's get on with that. There's a pretty logical through line that we can track in order to figure out why the alt-right pipeline works, and by negation, why there couldn't be a true alt-left pipeline of a similar nature. First, we need to sort out what the goal of a radicalization pipeline is. In my understanding, its goal is to capture the attention of one who is relatively disinterested in politics, the majority of people, and not only make them interested in politics, but eventually interested in radical politics and political activism in favor of the community that radicalized them. Since I'm American, I'm going to use our political parties in history for the rest of this video, but I think the ideas are relatively sound when used in other contexts. The most important component in the modern alt-right pipeline, in my opinion, is the media ecosystem that the Republican Party has been building since the 1990s. I could go on for hours about this one, but I will spare you that for now. All we need to know is that back in the early 1900s, there was a large public distrust in Republican economic policy after the Great Depression. This caused the Republican Party to more closely align itself with the Democrats, not just in economic policy, but later in other social policy efforts as well. The alignment between the two parties is what eventually allowed for the New Deal era to occur, since both parties agreed on a general direction for the country, only disagreeing on how to implement certain policies, for the most part. And as we well know, in regards to most social movements, each surge in a certain ideology is met with an opposing reaction, and this is effectively what allowed Ronald Reagan to take the presidency in 1980. What is important to understand at this point is that the strategy of the Republican Party began to shift. They noticed that their conservative policy proposals were relatively unpopular amongst the general public, especially in states required to win elections. If they could instead create a system where politics was more about culture than actual policies, they could attempt to convince Americans that they were the right choice to pick because they were the more patriotic or constitutional or working class party, despite there being a clear dissonance between those phrases and their actual policy proposals. And this is where the media ecosystem comes in. In the 1990s, the Republican Party and its donors began to invest a significant amount of funds and resources into building a widespread media apparatus with the goal of uniting the many small conservative coalitions throughout the country under a single narrative. The idea was to convince anyone from business owners to evangelicals to even your average dissatisfied American that the establishment Democrats were coming to destroy the very fabric of the United States and that the small town Republicans were going to stop them, so long as you donate to them and vote for them. This media narrative also consisted of broad moral panics, reimaginings of American history, and an oddly postmodern skepticism and pessimism not only about the Democrats, but also any Republicans that might sympathize with their causes. And this narrative caught on like wildfire, whether it be on AM radio with Rush Limbaugh or cable news with Sean Hannity and the Fox News crew, and it served as the foundation for the Republican strategy on how to win elections. If you can't make people vote for your party, make them vote against the other. Let's move on to the second point. These conservative narratives, like blaming economic instability solely on immigration or claiming that the LGBT community is corrupting children, bigotry in general toward any non-straight cisgender white male group, they generate fear. And let me be clear, both parties attempt to play into these narratives to try and win elections. However, it is important to note that there are multiple studies, which I've linked in the description, that show that individuals with conservative policy leanings are also more likely to focus on negative narratives and to have increased sensitivity to perceived threats. In that context, it makes sense why both parties try to use these narratives to win elections. Republicans need to activate every conservative that they can, and Democrats want to win on the margins by flipping center-right Republican voters. Both parties engaging with negative, fearful narratives is also great for the alt-right pipeline because fear makes people want to protect themselves and the things they love. And alt-right ideals are broadly centered around hatred toward outgroups, ultra-conservative social policies, and isolationism and nationalism, all of which can be fostered by the repetition and installation of fear. Leftist ideals, however, broadly advocate for community-focused solutions that are inclusive and perhaps most importantly, new or progressive. That's why the left can't necessarily utilize fear. While the right's goal is to protect itself against perceived threats, the left's goal is to overcome obstacles of fear, to incorporate and advocate alongside groups that are marginalized and exploited by neoconservative capitalism. Instilling fear would mean to shift
I'm not
the
even like
blame
listening
onto
to this video
someone
because I'm
else.
just trying to
Leftist
get
movements
fucking chat
seek
to show
take
up
responsibility
and
and
like,
first
fucking
create
shit,
change from the inside. Fear, in the way that conservatives utilize it, is incompatible with these goals, and in the modern media landscape means that leftist ideals are less likely to spread in the public consciousness than conservative ideals. Now the third point. Young people have a lot of problems going on all the time. That's kind of what being young is about. However, for the sake of this video, we have to look at what kinds of problems would cause someone to become susceptible to the siren's call of a radicalization pipeline. In Innuendo Studios' alt-right playbook, the accumulation of problems that lead someone into a pipeline is called soul sickness. This sickness can be brought on by many things.
It's at the point where I have like so many windows open trying to fix this shit that I don't even know like what window to navigate to, and then by the time I find the window I'm navigating to, I don't remember what I was doing in that window.
But perhaps most importantly are trauma and isolation, especially amongst men. And to be clear, this isn't me doing a feel bad for all white men because they're racist bit, but just hear me out. Folks that have had traumatic or life-changing events occur to them are most likely to become susceptible to these right-wing narratives, as they not only provide an outlet for anger and a community to fill in those support roles that might have otherwise been lost through their trauma, but also a series of common enemies to direct that anger toward as a community. This is why, anecdotally, divorced dads and young lonely men are the most likely to fall into these pipelines, since modern conservative social standards isolate and generally prevent men from expressing camaraderie or brotherly love for each other. Those pesky leftist community-oriented vibes are not at all what these folks are looking for. Often, they feel victimized by the state or by their ex-wives or their classmates or whoever else, and they just want a place to direct that anger. Rarely do they ever want a solution to it. Their problems are just a given to them. On to the fourth point. Any given person that feels vaguely victimized then is a lot more likely to pay attention to the more surface level commentators on the right, because they broadly speak to that person's worsening material conditions without getting too in the weeds about actual politics. In the 90s, this character was played by Limbaugh, Hannity, Buchanan, and Fox News in general, and nowadays it's Elon Musk, Jordan Peterson, Dave Rubin, and Ben Shapiro, just to name a few. The left simply does not have the same game. The Democratic Party funds liberal news outlets and commentators, not leftist commentators. So the only place folks are able to be introduced to leftist commentary is, what, on BreadTube? I love PhilosophyTube and ContraPoints, of course, but they're just unable to meet the vast majority of people where they are, especially if those people are dissatisfied with what they perceive as culture war persecution against them. The Republican Party has bet its entire future on meeting these people, straight men and their wives, where they are, and not just slowly pushing them positively toward the right, but negatively away from anything perceived as leftist. And the last point. This funneling of regular Joes into rival political teams has created an environment in which parties seeps into our personal identities and our identities into our parties. The process of this occurring is one of a few forms of political polarization. And in a politically polarized country, the average person becomes significantly more anxious regarding political outcomes, and guess which party created a whole media ecosystem to take advantage of this anxiety? It's actually both parties, but the Democrats' media ecosystem is also primed against leftists, since leftist positions are too extreme to advocate for, which is also not the best hill for the Democrats to die on, because, to cite a recent example, some of Kamala Harris's most successful campaign promises during her 2024 election were her pledge to prevent grocery price gouging, her plan to have a 25% income tax for billionaires, and the strengthening of collective bargaining laws for unions, all of which polled with over 60% favorability amongst the general electorate, and all of which are leftist policy proposals, which she quickly abandoned due to her party's priming against leftists and their policies. Alright, let's wrap this all up into one tight bow and send you on your way. There is no alt-left pipeline because a political radicalization pipeline requires a few things to begin. Charismatic voices with massive investments from deep political pockets,
it is a really good
subtly
video.
stoking the flames of fear en masse and in the public sphere. The Republican Party specifically engineered the right-wing media apparatus to do these things, and there are no equivalent voices on the left, no deep leftist pockets to invest in the potential voices that there may be, and perhaps most importantly, no additional fear generated by the community-focused ideals of leftist politics. Even if fear is generated by the left, as we saw earlier, that fear will make someone more likely to adopt conservative policy preferences. And this is why your average dissatisfied American won't fall down a pipeline to the alt-left, and is also perhaps why the left should attempt to increase organizational efforts rather than attempting to go high by meeting the right in the marketplace of ideas, because the very fabric of the marketplace is stacked against them. And that's it for this lovely political video.
I've
Next
literally
week,
contacted tech support
a non-political
and tried to
topic. We're
help
going to be
and tried to
talking
get it
about fake plants and
to work.
nature
And now it's like I
simulation
embedded the
devices,
chat
I
and now
call
it's
them.
not showing up.
Like the grounding mats that, I don't know if you've seen them on like social media recently, but it's these ads for these like yoga mats where you plug them in and it takes like the ground charge from the outlet, and then it makes you feel like you're outside on the ground, but you're inside now and you don't have to breathe all that pesky fresh air and whatever. We're going to be talking about stuff like that, so subscribe if you want that, or subscribe if you want videos like this, or subscribe if you just can't get enough of my silky smooth voice. I guess we're always doing stuff here. I'll see you in the next one.
Let's be honest, we were in the brace position.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna I'm switching to Twitch only and not even bothering going through Restream, because my heart rate is like so high at this point that it's just for my own health. I need to stop streaming to YouTube where I won't see it's that, or I don't see all the chats. So if you're on YouTube, go to Twitch.